Tonight, let everything become a little softer. Let the day loosen its grip on you. Let the thoughts that have been circling, turning, and returning again and again begin to slow. They do not need to solve themselves tonight. They do not need to become neat, ordered, or finished before you can rest. You do not need to carry them all the way into the dark. There is a gentler place for you now, a quieter place, a slower place. And tonight, in that quiet place, we will walk beside Moses through the wilderness. We will not hurry across the sand. We will not rush from one chapter to the next. We will move the way tired hearts need to move at night. Slowly, gently, one step at a time. We will come near the glow of the burning bush. We will leave Egypt under the hand of God. We will watch the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. We will wake in the early stillness to manna on the ground, and at last we will rest with Moses in the promise that matters most of all, the presence of God going with his people. Not a God who shouts from far away, not a God who sends people out and leaves them alone, but the God who leads, the God who stays, the God who provides enough for today, the God whose presence gives rest. So as this story unfolds, you do not need to do anything more than listen. You do not need to imagine every detail perfectly. You do not need to hold on tightly. Let the words pass over you like a quiet wind, moving across open desert at night. Let them be simple company. Let them be a soft place for your mind to settle. Picture the wilderness now. It is night. The heat of the day has faded, and the land has given itself over to coolness. The sand, which burned under the sun, now keeps only a little warmth. The air is clear. The sky stretches wide and deep, like dark velvet scattered with stars. There are no city lights here, no noise of crowded streets, no sudden brightness, only stillness, only distance, only the faint hush of wind moving over stone and sand. And there, far away but visible in the night, a fire glows. Not a wildfire, not a consuming one, a steady fire, a guiding fire. It stands in the darkness like a promise that has taken shape. It does not tremble with fear. It does not hurry. It does not fade because night has come. It simply burns, calm and sure, before the people of God. That light is enough. Not enough to show every hill and every valley far ahead, not enough to explain the whole future, but enough for the next step, enough for the next breath, enough for one more night in the wilderness. And maybe that is how God so often leads tired people, not by showing everything at once, not by answering every question in advance, but by being present, by going ahead, by remaining near, by giving light for now. Tonight, if your heart has been asking for more than now, if your mind has been racing beyond today into tomorrow and the day after that, let this story be a gentle place to return. God often gives grace in smaller portions than we expect, but never in smaller portions than we need. He leads in rhythms that anxious hearts may find too slow at first, but later discover are full of mercy. One day at a time, one step at a time, one stretch of desert at a time. And the wilderness is not empty when God is there. It may feel wide. It may feel unknown. It may feel quiet enough that you notice your own smallness, but it is not abandoned ground. It is not beyond his reach. It is not a place where his care grows thin. The same God who meets Moses in fire, who parts a path through impossible places, who spreads cloud in the day and fire in the night, who lays bread on the ground in the morning, is the God who leads his people through wilderness with tenderness deeper than they understand at first. So come into this story now. Come softly. Come as you are. We begin before the great movement of the people, before the long line of footsteps in the sand, before the daily gathering of manna, before the mountain, before the tabernacle, before Moses speaks of glory and presence and rest. We begin in quiet obscurity. We begin with one man in the wilderness. Moses has known many kinds of life by now. He has known the shelter and learning of Pharaoh's house. He has known the ache of seeing suffering among his own people. He has known the sharpness of fear after violence. He has known flight. He has known starting over. He has known the long, ordinary faithfulness of days that do not look remarkable to anyone else. Now he lives in Midian. The years have passed. The hot urgency of youth has quieted into a different kind of life. He keeps flocks. He walks familiar paths. He rises and rests by rhythms shaped by land, animals, weather, and time. There is dust on his sandals. There is sun on his face. There is silence enough for thoughts to stretch out. Perhaps, on some days, he wonders whether the larger story of his life is over. Perhaps he no longer expects interruption. Perhaps he has learned to live without looking for extraordinary things. And that is often where God meets people. Not always when they stand ready and certain. Not always when they feel important. Not always when they are burning with confidence. Sometimes God comes in the middle of a plain day, in a place that seems far from power, in a life that has become ordinary. And there he reveals that he has been preparing something all along. Moses is leading the flock near Horeb, the mountain of God. The path is quiet. The sky is bright with day. The stones are warm. The landscape stretches with the rugged beauty of a place that does not need to prove itself. There are ridges of rock, small movements of wind, the sound of animals nearby, and the kind of stillness that can make even a small thing noticeable. Then Moses sees it, a bush on fire, and yet it is not being burned up. The flame is there, real and bright, but the branches remain. The fire does not consume what it touches. It burns with a strange steadiness, a holiness that does not destroy. It is unlike every other fire he has seen. No frantic crackling, no collapse into ash. Only presence, only mystery, only a flame that holds its own calm within itself. Moses turns aside to see. That small turning matters, that quiet curiosity, that willingness to pause in the middle of what had been an ordinary task. He turns aside, and as he draws near, God speaks. Moses, Moses. He is called by name, not by title, not by task, not by failure, not by potential, by name. There is something deeply tender in that. Before instruction comes recognition. Before sending comes knowing. Before Moses has a chance to ask anything, he is already known by the one who speaks. And Moses answers, "Here I am." It is a simple answer, but perhaps it is all that any of us can truly bring to God at first. Not perfect understanding, not readiness, not strength, only presence. Here I am. Tired perhaps, unsure perhaps, but here. Then the voice tells him not to come any closer. He is standing on holy ground. He is told to remove his sandals, and Moses does so, because this is no ordinary wonder in the desert. This is the nearness of God, and even the ground beneath him is changed by that nearness. Imagine the moment, the stillness, the heat of the day suspended in awe, the brush of air against skin, the quiet after those words, the sacredness of ordinary earth made holy by God's presence. Moses hides his face because he is afraid to look upon God. There is reverence here, deep and right. Yet the God who speaks is not cold. He does not reveal holiness in order to crush Moses. He reveals holiness and then speaks words of compassion. I have surely seen the affliction of my people. I have heard their cry. I know their sufferings. How gentle and powerful those words are. God has seen. God has heard. God knows. The suffering of his people has not vanished into silence. It has not blended into the background of the world. It has not become invisible to him. Their groaning has not been ignored. Their tears have not fallen where he could not see them. He knows. And because he knows, he comes. He tells Moses that he has come down to deliver his people out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them into a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey. There is tenderness in this promise too. God is not merely leading people away from pain. He is leading them toward a place of care, provision, and home. Then the moment turns, because the God who has come to deliver also says to Moses that he will be sent. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh. And suddenly the holy wonder of the burning bush becomes personal in a new way. This is not merely a revelation to admire from a distance. It is a calling. It is movement. It is obedience. It is the beginning of a path Moses did not expect to walk. Moses answers the way many weary people would answer. Who am I? It is not a boast. It is not rebellion dressed as humility. It is the honest question of a man who knows his own smallness. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? Who am I that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? Maybe you know that question too, not necessarily in those words, but in the feeling behind them. Who am I to do what feels too large for me? Who am I to carry this responsibility? Who am I to step into something uncertain? Who am I to believe that God could use someone like me? The tenderness of God's answer matters. He does not begin by inflating Moses. He does not say, "You are stronger than you think," though Moses may be stronger than he knows. He does not say, "Look inside yourself and you will find what you need." He says, "But I will be with you." That is the answer. Not a full explanation, not a detailed blueprint, not a list of all the strengths Moses has overlooked. Presence. I will be with you. Those words are like a steady flame themselves. They do not remove every question Moses has, but they place something stronger than explanation at the center of the path. Moses is not sent alone. He is not sent with empty hands into a future that depends entirely on his own wisdom. He is sent with the promise of God's presence. And often that is how God strengthens his servants most deeply. Not by telling them they will never feel weak, but by telling them they will never be alone. Moses continues to ask questions. He wonders what he should say if the Israelites ask the name of the God who sent him. He wants something firm to carry into uncertainty, something true and clear enough to hold when people ask, when fear rises, when authority must be faced. Then comes one of the great revelations in Scripture. God says, "I am who I am." And then, say this to the people of Israel, "I am has sent me to you." This is holy mystery, and yet it is also deeply restful. God is not defined by the limits that define everyone else. He is not becoming. He is not failing. He is not depending. He is steady, eternal, unchanging in his being, full in himself, faithful in every generation. The God who sends Moses is not fragile. The God who leads through the wilderness is not uncertain. The God who promises to be with his people is not temporary. He is. And for tired hearts, that matters more than we first realize. So much in life feels unstable. So much changes. So much slips through our hands. But the one who says, "I am," is not shaken by time, not thinned by distance, not diminished by darkness, not surprised by wilderness. He is. He will be what his people need him to be, in perfect faithfulness to his own holy character. He will not stop being God in the desert. He will not become less attentive because the road is long. He will not run out of mercy before his people run out of needs. He is. Let that settle gently in you tonight. Not every question must be answered before sleep comes, but this truth can rest beneath the unanswered questions. God is. He sees. He hears. He knows. He comes. He stays. The conversation at the bush continues with patient mercy. Moses raises objections. He wonders what will happen. He is slow of speech. He is hesitant. He is deeply aware that the road ahead will not be simple. And even here, God's dealing with him is marked by long patience. There is seriousness, yes. There is calling, yes. But there is also accommodation, reassurance, and provision for his weakness. God gives signs, a staff that becomes a serpent and returns again, a hand made leprous and then restored, water that will become blood. God is not mocking Moses' weakness. He is equipping him within it. And when Moses again protests that he is not eloquent, that he is slow of speech and tongue, God reminds him who made man's mouth. The one who formed him knows him. The one who sends him understands his limitations better than Moses himself does. Moses does not need to become someone else before he can obey. He will go as the man God knows, with the help God provides. Aaron will go with him too. Even in that, there is kindness. God does not always strip away all support so we can prove our faith. Sometimes he gives companionship. Sometimes he gives a brother. Sometimes he gives help that does not lessen his glory, but reveals his tenderness. The bush still burns. The ground is still holy. The day has changed forever. And yet the holiness of this moment is not only in the fire. It is also in the way God stoops to speak with a hesitant man until that man can begin to walk forward. If you have ever felt that your weakness disqualifies you, Moses' story whispers otherwise. If you have ever felt that your fear makes you unusable, Moses' story gently answers with another truth. God knows the trembling of those he calls. He is not startled by it. He is patient. He is holy, yes. But holiness in God is not cold distance. It is purity joined with compassion. Majesty joined with mercy. Now rest here for a little while. Picture the mountain again. Picture the bush burning without being consumed. Picture Moses standing barefoot on holy ground, his face hidden, his heart full of fear and wonder. And over that whole scene, hear once more the words that carry so much of this journey. I will be with you. Let them come slowly. I will be with you, not only at the beginning, not only when you feel brave, not only when the way is clear. I will be with you. Rest there a moment. The desert is wide, but God is near. The future is unknown, but God is near. And so the story begins to move. Moses leaves the mountain carrying more than instructions. He carries a promise. He returns to the place where he has been living. There are farewells to make, practical matters to tend, a life to gather for travel. Obedience often includes ordinary things. Even after holy encounters, there are roads to walk, households to order, journeys to begin. Moses goes back toward Egypt, back toward the place he once fled. That alone requires courage. There are places in life we do not wish to revisit, seasons we would rather leave buried behind us. Yet sometimes God leads not around those places, but through them, not to shame us, not to reopen wounds without purpose, but to accomplish redemption where fear once ruled. Moses is not traveling alone. Aaron comes to meet him. The brothers are reunited in the wilderness, and there is comfort in that meeting. Two men walking together under God's hand. Two voices preparing to speak the word the Lord has given. Two brothers, no longer young, moving into the strange and sacred work ahead of them. When they gather the elders of Israel and speak the words God has given, the people believe. They hear that the Lord has visited them, that he has seen their affliction, and they bow their heads and worship. That moment matters. Before the road out of Egypt is fully opened, there's already a response to God's care. Because to know that the Lord has seen, to know that he has visited, to know that suffering has not been ignored, this alone is enough to bring weary people to their knees. There is something deeply comforting in that for tired listeners tonight, Sometimes, before circumstances change, there comes a holy assurance that God has seen. And that assurance does not solve everything at once, but it begins to soften despair. It lets worship rise where numbness had settled. It lets the heart say, even in weakness, He knows. He has not forgotten me. Then Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh. We will not linger on all the sharp conflict here. This is a sleep story, and the heart of our journey tonight is not the chaos of judgment, but the faithfulness of God leading His people out. So let the confrontation remain mostly at the edges, like distant thunder, not allowed to disturb the stillness too much. Pharaoh resists. There is hardness. There is refusal. There is the pride of earthly power standing against the word of God. And yet none of this surprises the Lord. None of it overturns His purpose. The path to freedom is not simple, but it remains in His hands. At last, the night of departure comes. This is a solemn night, a sacred night, a remembered night. The households of Israel prepare as the Lord has commanded. There is carefulness in the air. There is urgency, but there is also reverence. Doors marked, meals eaten in readiness, sandals on feet, staffs in hand, a people on the edge of movement. And then, after long oppression, after generations under burden, the moment of leaving arrives. Imagine it now, not in harsh noise, but in a softened, sleep-lit way. Night stretches over Egypt. The stars are above. Families gather what they can carry. Mothers hold children close. Elders step carefully. Men shoulder bundles. There are lamps flickering in hands. There are whispered instructions. There is the strange feeling of stepping away from what has long been familiar, even when familiar was painful. Freedom does not always feel loud at first. Sometimes it feels tender, fragile, almost quiet, a first step in the dark. The people begin to move. Not in perfect order, perhaps, not in polished strength, but in obedience. A great company walking out into the night. Generations who had known brick and burden now putting one foot in front of the other toward a future they cannot yet imagine. What does it feel like to leave the place of bondage, even when bondage was terrible? It may feel relieving. It may feel disorienting. It may feel like joy braided together with uncertainty. The known, even when painful, can hold a strange familiarity. The unknown, even when promised by God, can still feel wide. And this, too, is part of the tenderness of Scripture. God does not despise His people for being human as they leave Egypt. He does not demand that they instantly become fearless. He leads them as they are. The road itself is shaped by mercy. Scripture tells us that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near, because He said that people might change their minds when they saw war and return to Egypt. Instead, God led the people around by the way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea. This matters so deeply. God chooses the road with their weakness in mind. He knows what they are able to bear. He knows what would overwhelm them too soon. He knows the limits of their courage in that moment. And so He leads them another way, not because He is inefficient, not because He is uncertain, but because He is kind. How often God leads like that. We may look at the shortest path and assume it would be the best. We may wonder why the way has curved, why progress seems slower than it could have been, why the journey includes wilderness instead of direct arrival. But the Lord who leads His people is never merely calculating distance. He is caring for souls. He is shaping trust. He is guarding frailty. He is leading in wisdom deeper than haste. So Israel goes out equipped, and among the details, there is one more tender thread. Moses takes the bones of Joseph with him, because Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear that when God visited them, they would carry his bones up from there. Even this speaks quietly in the night. The promises of God stretch across generations. Joseph had trusted that God would surely visit his people. Long after Joseph rested in death, That trust was being honored. The journey out of Egypt carried old hope within it. The Lord had not forgotten what earlier generations had believed, and perhaps that is comforting too. God remembers promises longer than human memory can hold them. He remembers the prayers of generations. He remembers the trust of those now sleeping in the dust. He remembers what he has spoken. The people set out from Sukkoth and camp at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. The edge. That word feels important. There are seasons when we stand at the edge of something we have never crossed before. Behind this lies what has been left. Before us lies terrain not yet known. The edge can feel exposed. It can feel exciting or vulnerable or both. The edge is not arrival, but it is also not bondage. It is a threshold place. And there, on the edge of the wilderness, the Lord gives one of the most beautiful signs in all the story. The Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. Pause there. The Lord went before them. He did not merely point from afar. He did not give a map and withdraw. He went before them. In the daytime, when the desert sun could be harsh and relentless, there was cloud, a visible sign of God's leading, shading, and guiding. A softening presence stretched before the people. And at night, when darkness spread over the wilderness, and fear could easily rise in the unseen vastness, there was fire, light enough to continue, warmth enough to reassure. A steady sign that the Lord was with them, even when the landscape disappeared into shadow. The pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night. Day and night. Day and night. The pattern itself becomes restful when you let it linger. Cloud when the sun is high. Fire when darkness falls. Guidance for brightness. Guidance for shadow. Presence in labor. Presence in rest. God did not lead only in dramatic moments. He led in rhythm, in continuity, in the repeated mercy of each part of the day. The text says, "The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people." Did not depart. That is a phrase worth holding close. There was no hour when the people were without the sign of his leading. No time when they awoke and found him gone. No night when darkness arrived and God said, "You are on your own until morning." He did not depart. How many anxious hearts need that tonight? Maybe not because you always feel his nearness clearly. Israel surely had moments of confusion and complaint and fear. But the reality of God's presence does not depend on our perfect awareness of it. He did not depart. Picture the people settling into camp in the wilderness. Children grow drowsy. Voices soften. The ground receives weary bodies. Somewhere, a low conversation continues in hushed tones. Somewhere, a mother covers a sleeping child. Somewhere, an older man stares quietly into the distance, perhaps still trying to understand that they are truly no longer in Egypt. And before them, the pillar of fire glows. Its light is not frantic. It is not jagged or wild. It stands with calm authority against the dark sky. The fire says what words cannot always hold. The Lord is here. The Lord is ahead. The Lord is not sleeping through this journey. The Lord keeps watch. And when morning comes, the fire gives way to cloud. The same God, a different mercy for the different hour. If you have been asking for God's care to come in a certain form, perhaps this story gently reminds you that his care often changes shape according to the hour. Cloud in heat, fire in darkness, shade for the day, light for the night. He knows the need of each moment better than we do. Let us rest a little in that image. A people in the wilderness, a calm pillar of fire at night, above a wide, quiet sky, around the cool hush of desert dark. Ahead, a visible sign that the Lord goes before them. Nothing is solved all at once. The journey is not over. There are still questions waiting farther down the road. But for this night, there is guidance. For this night, there is presence. For this night, there is enough light. If that is all you can receive tonight, let it be enough. Enough light. Enough nearness. Enough for one more step. One more breath. One more letting go. The story moves forward through wilderness days and wilderness nights. There is walking and stopping, rising and settling, the repeated rhythms that shape a people in motion. Sandal after sandal presses into the earth. Camps are pitched, camps are lifted. Morning comes, evening comes. The cloud rises, the fire glows. And then the people know hunger. Of course they do. Bodies carried out of slavery are still bodies. Liberation does not remove human need. Freedom is glorious, but it does not mean the desert suddenly becomes easy. The people have left the flesh pots of Egypt, the certainty of food that came with their bondage, and now they feel the emptiness of wilderness in a new way. Need has a way of stirring old memories. Sometimes the past looks kinder in recollection than it truly was, especially when the present feels uncertain. Hunger can make even slavery seem simpler by comparison. And so the people grumble. They speak from fear. They look backward. They imagine that at least in Egypt they had bread. This too is deeply human. When tired, people remember selectively. When afraid, people often confuse familiarity with goodness. When the road is long, hearts can begin to say, maybe the old captivity was better than this uncertain freedom. God hears them, and what does He do? He provides, not because their grumbling is beautiful, not because fear is noble, but because His mercy is deeper than their frailty. He tells Moses that He will rain bread from heaven for them. Each day the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day. Each day enough, not excess, not storehouses for fear's sake, enough for the day. There is something so profoundly soothing in this pattern. Not yearly provision dropped all at once. Not 10 years of supply, so no one ever has to trust again. Daily bread. Bread that trains the heart to wake and look. Bread that cannot be hoarded without spoilage. Bread that comes with the sunrise. Bread that teaches dependence in gentle repetition. Imagine the first morning. The camp is quiet in the early hour. The desert has not yet grown hot. A coolness still lingers in the air, and the light is pale and new. Dew lies on the ground. The people stir from sleep. There is the soft movement of waking households, the sound of feet near tents, the hush that belongs to the first moments of day before labor begins in earnest. Then the dew lifts, and there upon the face of the wilderness is a fine, flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground, small, delicate, unexpected. The people see it and ask one another, "What is it?" For they do not know what it is. Moses tells them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat." How gentle this gift is, not a violent miracle, not a dramatic display meant to overwhelm the senses. Something small on the ground, something to stoop and gather, something that arrives with the morning and meets ordinary hunger. The people are instructed to gather as much as each can eat, an omer per person, according to the number in the tent. Enough for each household, enough for each need. Those who gather much have nothing over. Those who gather little have no lack. Each one has enough. This is not the economy of anxiety. This is not accumulation driven by fear of tomorrow. This is the peaceable order of God's provision for today. Enough for the strong, enough for the weak, enough for the large household, enough for the one who can gather only a little. Enough. Maybe tonight your heart needs that word repeated more gently than explanation could give it. Enough. Not everything. Not all at once. Not a whole lifetime laid out where you can inspect it, but enough. Enough grace for this day. Enough mercy for this hour. Enough strength for this step. Enough light for this night. The manna teaches the people more than how to eat in the desert. It teaches them the rhythm of trust. Morning after morning, they must wake and receive. They cannot own the future in advance. They cannot secure themselves against every imagined tomorrow. They can only gather what God has given for the day before them. This is hard for anxious hearts. Anxious hearts want extra. Extra certainty. Extra time. Extra evidence. Extra control. We want tomorrow's manna today and next week's peace tonight. We want to know there will be enough, and enough after that, and enough after that again, until the whole future feels safely sealed in our hands. But God, in wisdom and love, often gives daily bread instead, not because He is withholding, because He is inviting us into a life where dependence is not humiliation, but relationship. A life where every morning becomes an opportunity to discover that He is faithful again. The manna is white like coriander seed, and its taste is like wafers made with honey. There is sweetness in it. Even in the wilderness, God's provision is not merely bare survival. It carries kindness. It carries something of delight. Hunger is answered by bread from heaven with sweetness in it. Let yourself picture that morning clearly. The cool ground, the pale light, the people bending to gather, the quiet amazement, the smell of morning air, the soft voices of households discovering that God has spread provision before them while they slept. There is something almost parental in it, the way care appears before the children are even fully awake. And indeed, our God is like that, attentive before we notice our need, preparing mercy ahead of our asking, laying provision where we will find it when the hour comes. The instruction about manna continues. They are not to leave any of it till morning. Some do, and it breeds worms and stinks. Fear tries to save itself by storing what God meant to be received day by day. Fear says, "What if tomorrow there is nothing?" Faith says, "The God who gave today's bread can give tomorrow's too." And then comes the Sabbath rhythm. On the 6th day, they gather twice as much, because the 7th day is a holy rest to the Lord. On that day, there will be no manna in the fields. God is not only feeding His people, He is teaching them rest. Even in the wilderness, even in dependence, even in daily need, there is Sabbath woven into the pattern. This too is tender. Rest is not an afterthought. Rest is not a reward only for those who no longer need provision. Rest is built into the life of a people being sustained by grace. The God who gives bread also gives pause. The God who leads onward also commands stillness. The God who cares for hunger also cares for weariness. Perhaps you need to hear that tonight. Rest is not irresponsible when God commands it. Rest is holy trust. Rest says, "I am not the one holding all things together." Rest says, "The world may continue without my management while I sleep." Rest says, "God will still be God through the night." Now let the pace slow again. Morning in the wilderness, manna on the ground. Enough for today. Nothing more required. Nothing more possible. Only receiving, only gathering, only trusting. Enough for today. If your mind runs ahead, bring it back gently with that phrase, "Enough for today." If your heart reaches anxiously into tomorrow, return softly, "Enough for today." If the wilderness of your own life feels large and your strength feels small, let the manna speak, "Enough for today." The journey continues, and through it all the cloud and fire remain. We must not lose sight of them. The manna teaches provision. The pillar teaches presence and guidance. Together, they form a kind of rhythm for the people of God in the desert. Day after day, the cloud leads. Imagine the brightness of the desert noon softened by its covering. Imagine heads lifting to watch when it moves. Imagine the relief of not having to guess the direction. They do not invent the route, they follow. And this following, though not always easy, holds within it a deep rest. The burden of ultimate direction does not rest on them. It rests on the God who goes before them. At night the fire burns again. Some nights, perhaps, the people speak of what lies ahead. Some nights they speak of what has been left behind. Some nights they say little at all. But always there is the quiet assurance of that fire. And perhaps children who have grown used to seeing it now fall asleep under its glow without fully remembering what darkness without it would feel like. How kind God is to become familiar in our lives. Not ordinary in the sense of common, but steady enough that what once amazed us becomes the very environment of trust. So often the greatest miracles are not only the sudden wonders, but the daily nearness that remains. A God who stays. A God who does not depart. The people know testing, of course. They know thirst. They know waiting. They know their own hearts. We do not need to trace every turn of complaint or correction tonight. It is enough to say that the wilderness reveals many things. It reveals the needs of the body. It reveals the fears of the mind. It reveals the memories that tug backward. It reveals the impatience hidden inside us. But it also reveals God, His patience, His provision, His holiness, His leading, His faithfulness when His people are not yet faithful. And perhaps that is one reason God does not waste wilderness seasons in our lives. Not because He enjoys our discomfort, but because there are revelations of Himself that become visible there. In Egypt, people may know His power to judge and save. In the wilderness, they learn His daily companionship. There is a different kind of intimacy in long journeys, a different knowing, not the knowing that comes from one dramatic rescue only, but the knowing that comes from waking again and again to discover that He is still here, still leading, still feeding, still bearing with weakness, still making a way through land that offers no obvious path. Now the story moves us toward one of its most tender heights. By the time we come to the words of Exodus 33, much has happened. There has been failure among the people. There has been grief. There has been the deep ache of brokenness in the camp. Moses has interceded. The relationship between a holy God and a stubborn people has been tested in ways that reveal both the seriousness of sin and the greatness of mercy. Yet tonight we come not to dwell in the sharpness of that failure, but to rest in the beauty of what Moses longs for and what God promises. Moses speaks to the Lord with unusual nearness. Scripture says the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. We should hear that carefully, with reverence. Not because Moses is casual with God, but because there is a closeness granted by grace. The God of the burning bush, the God of the cloud and fire, the God of thunder and holiness, also draws near in communion. Moses has come to care more about God's presence than about any other gift. This is one of the most beautiful maturities in his soul. He does not merely want success. He does not merely want progress. He does not merely want the promised land as land. He wants God himself. He says, in essence, if your presence will not go with me, do not bring us up from here. Listen to that holy clarity. Do not bring us up from here if you are not with us. The land without God would not be enough. Movement without God would not be enough. Achievement without God would not be enough. Moses has come to understand the deepest truth of the wilderness. What makes the people distinct is not the terrain they cross or the destination they seek, but the presence of the Lord among them. And then God says the words that have become a pillow for many weary souls through the centuries. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Let those words come gently. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Not merely, I will show you the route. Not merely, I will make you productive. Not merely, I will ensure outward success. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. This is the heart of tonight's journey. Rest is not only the end of movement. Rest is the gift of presence in movement. Rest is not merely lying down after everything is solved. Rest is the soul settling, because God is near. Rest is not found only in arrival. It is found in being led. How many people lie awake because they think rest will come only when life finally becomes clear, stable, finished, or controlled? But the scriptures speak more gently and more deeply. Rest comes in the presence of God. It comes when the heart no longer believes it must carry the whole wilderness by itself. It comes when we know that the one who goes before us also goes with us. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Moses asks to know God's ways, that he may know him. He asks for assurance that this nation is indeed God's people. He asks, ultimately, for God himself. And in these requests, we see something tender. The more Moses encounters God, the more he longs for God. True nearness does not make the heart bored. It deepens desire in peaceful ways. Then Moses asks, "Please show me your glory." It is a bold request, but not a demanding one. It comes from a heart that has tasted enough of God's presence to know that there is always more beauty in him than can be fully grasped. Moses does not ask for spectacle for its own sake. He asks because the soul, drawn near to God, wants to behold him. God answers with both generosity and boundary. He says he will make all his goodness pass before Moses and will proclaim his name. But Moses cannot see his face, for man shall not see me and live. Still, the Lord places Moses in the cleft of the rock, covers him, passes by, and allows him to see something of his glory after he has passed. Even here the tenderness of God appears. He gives as much as Moses can bear. He reveals himself truly, but with protective mercy. God's glory is not given in a way that destroys the one who asks. Holiness and compassion remain joined. How like God that is. He knows how much revelation we can bear. He knows how to draw us near without crushing us. He knows how to answer longing with goodness and still guard our fragile humanity. Perhaps that is comforting tonight, too. You do not need to force your way into spiritual intensity. You do not need to seize what God gives only in measure. He knows how to give himself wisely. He knows how to sustain your soul with what you can bear tonight. And maybe tonight what you can bear is very simple. Not visions, not answers. Just this. His presence will go with you. He will give you rest. Stay there a while. Picture Moses in the tent of meeting, the hush around him, the holy intimacy of conversation with God. Picture the people at a distance, each at the entrance of his tent, watching the pillar of cloud descend. Picture the sense among them that the Lord is near, truly near, not as an idea, not as a memory, not only as a story from long ago, but as present reality. The pillar comes down. Moses speaks with God, and the camp becomes quiet with reverence. How many times in life do we rush past reverence because our minds are full of urgency? But reverence has a way of slowing everything into truth. It reminds us that God is not another item within our crowded day. He is the center, the Holy One, the living Lord. And yet this Holy One says to his servant, "My presence will go with you." What a miracle that holiness gives rest rather than terror to those sheltered by mercy. Now the story begins its descent, not because God has grown less glorious, not because the wilderness has become less real, but because bedtime asks for gentleness, repetition, and peace. So let the images return in quiet rhythm. The desert at night, the stars above, the pillar of fire softly burning in the distance. Moses somewhere among the people, no longer a man alone at a bush, but a shepherd of a nation, still dependent, still learning, still led. The people resting in their tents, the manna already promised for morning, the cloud waiting for day, the presence of God among them, and above it all, the slow truth settling like cool air. They are being led, not abandoned, not lost in the wilderness, led Perhaps not quickly enough for their preferences. Perhaps not simply enough for their understanding, but faithfully, wisely, tenderly. Led. The desert can be a lonely image if God is absent. But with God present, the desert becomes something else. It becomes a place of guidance, a place of daily bread, a place where heaven bends low enough to be seen in fire and cloud. It becomes a place where the soul learns that life is held not by certainty, but by relationship. And maybe that is what you most need tonight. Not certainty, relationship. Not all details, presence. Not the whole road, just the next place where the fire glows. Imagine yourself now, not as an observer only, but as someone resting at the edge of that camp. The sand is cool beneath the night. The air carries the clean dryness of the desert after heat has faded. Around you is a hush, the kind of hush that does not feel empty, but safe. In the distance, the pillar of fire rises steady and calm. You do not need to guard the camp tonight. You do not need to make the fire burn. You do not need to decide when it will move. You only need to rest under the care of the God who leads. The people of Israel could sleep because the Lord was awake. The people could rest because the pillar remained. The people could wake to manna because provision did not depend on their anxious striving through the night. And the same character of God remains beautiful now. He is not less faithful. He is not less present. He is not less able to lead through wilderness. The forms may differ, but the heart of God does not change. He still knows how to guide tired people. He still knows how to feed hungry souls. He still knows how to be near in darkness. He still knows how to give rest. So let this truth wash over the tired parts of you. You do not need to know the whole way. Moses did not. You do not need to be naturally fearless. Moses was not. You do not need to gather years of strength tonight. Israel gathered daily bread. You do not need to create God's presence. It goes with His people by His grace. And you do not need to force yourself into rest. Rest is received like manna. Rest is given like shade beneath cloud. Rest is spoken by God. I will give you rest. Let the story slow even more now. The fire glows. The night deepens. The camp is quiet. A child sighs in sleep. A low wind moves gently across the sand. Far above, the stars continue in silent beauty, undisturbed by human fear. And there is the pillar, steady, warm, visible. Before the people, you look at it and know, without needing to say much, that tomorrow does not have to be solved tonight. Tomorrow has its own manna. Tomorrow has its own movement of cloud. Tomorrow has its own mercies already known to God. Tonight there is fire. Tonight there is rest. Tonight there is enough. Enough for today. Enough for this night. Enough for this breath. If thoughts rise again, do not wrestle them hard. Let them pass like drifting sand carried on a small wind. Return instead to the images God has given through His Word. The bush burning without being consumed. A God who calls by name. A God who says, I have seen. I have heard. I know. A God who says, I will be with you. A people walking out under the stars. A road chosen with human weakness in mind. The pillar of cloud by day. The pillar of fire by night. Manna with the morning dew. Enough for each one. A holy rest woven into wilderness life. Moses asking for God's presence more than for any gift. And the answer, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Let that answer become the gentle ending of the whole story tonight. Not because every trial is gone, not because wilderness never hurts, but because presence changes what wilderness means. Presence means the desert is not godless. Presence means the unknown is not empty. Presence means the road is not fatherless. Presence means the night is not unguarded. Presence means tired hearts may release what they cannot control. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Say it inwardly if it helps, not with effort, but with softness. Your presence will go with me, and you will give me rest. Again, gently. Your presence will go with me, and you will give me rest. Now the fire is the main thing left in the picture. The camp grows stiller. Conversations have ended. Tools lie where they were set down. The day's footsteps are finished. The manna is not needed until morning. The cloud will come again in its hour. All is quiet. Only the pillar of fire stands in the distance, calm and clear, like love made visible in the wilderness. And maybe this is one of the deepest mercies of God, that He does not only lead in triumph and thunder, but in forms tired people can rest beside. A fire in the night, bread in the morning, a voice speaking friend to friend, guidance that takes weakness into account, a path curved by compassion, presence that stays. Stay there now, in that peace. No more striving, no more reaching far ahead. Only the hush of desert night. Only the soft glow of holy fire. Only the sense that you are held within a story larger and kinder than your fear. The God of Moses is not hurried. He is not anxious. He is not wondering how this will turn out. He is not losing sight of His people in the wilderness. He goes before them. He remains with them. He provides for them. He gives rest, and as the night deepens further, even the words can begin to thin out. Just the images, just the truth. Fire in the dark, cloud in the day, bread in the morning, presence on the way, rest. Fire in the dark, cloud in the day, bread in the morning, presence on the way, rest. Enough for today, enough for tonight. Enough because God is enough. The sand is cool now. The stars are countless. The camp is sleeping. The pillar remains. And you may sleep too. Sleep while the Lord keeps watch. Sleep while His presence goes before you. Sleep without solving tomorrow. Sleep under the gentle care of the God who leads through the wilderness, one day at a time. And if the night wakes you, remember the fire. If worry returns, remember the manna. If the road ahead feels hidden, remember the cloud. If you feel too small, remember the bush and the voice that called a hesitant man by name. If you feel too tired, remember the promise given to Moses. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Let that be the last light in the landscape. Let that be the final warmth. Let that be the pillow beneath every lingering thought. The fire still burns. The Lord is still near. The wilderness is still under His hand, and you are gently, faithfully, lovingly led. Rest now in the quiet presence of the God who goes before you, stays beside you, and gives you enough for today.